I looked around and I thought about what was abundant in Nigeria, what existed, what opportunities were, and I decided to go into the oil industry.
There was this opportunity. GT had a network in the then National Oil and Chemical Company. And so they needed a business. BRF, you have to incorporate a company for us. So we incorporated Ocean and Oil Services.
We had this client that had a tanker that he wanted to sell. So he comes, he makes me an offer, which I accept. He makes GT an offer, which he accepts. And that was how we started it.
It was quite successful.
In the advent of the privatization era, they were thinking then of buying, I think it was first Unipetrol.
For us, it was survival. Unipetrol and African Petroleum were controlled by NNPC. The companies that had been the basis of our business for the past 10, 12 years is just about to change. So we had to go and bid for one of them.
I told the then CEO that we're interested in buying it. He looked at me like I was a joker.
That was the only way to ensure that we could continue our business.
When the financial bid came, we won.
I said to him, talk to me about your vision for Oando. And he began to share his vision about building a world-class indigenous oil and gas company.
When you decide to do something audacious, everybody doubts you. But as soon as you show it can be done, everybody wants to back you. So I was born in 1967. Went to primary school in 3 different states because my dad was in the police force, was a police commissioner, and we kept getting moved around. So as soon as I'd made friends in one school, next thing he got transferred and we moved on. So I kind of got used to new environments, making new friends, establishing yourself, and I got used to saying goodbye as well too. So I took it in my stride. I never was depressed or disappointed to move from place to place. I found it quite exciting, and I still do. I still love to travel.
We were met at summer school camp, University of Lagos, which is just before your O-levels. So I would have been 15 then. We became friendly. We were both enjoying ourselves and trying to study at the same time, which was good, a bit of both. And that was it. And from then on, we stayed as friends. We went to university in the UK, virtually lived together. So the friendship was there.
I met him through a mutual friend of ours, Aguiruko, and I found it interesting because during that period, you don't normally have comradeship with someone who's much younger. But he and Mofe gravitated to me. They brought a combination that I didn't easily find in friendships. They were very intellectual, and they're also very social.
Time in uni was exciting. I mean, we had a lot of fun. I did a lot of sports. I played rugby, I did athletics, I sprinted, I played a lot of squash. There was a lot of fitness, there was a lot of partying as well. We loved to party, we loved to socialize. And then there was a lot of studying when we had to get down to it. I mean, I couldn't stand not getting good grades.
We're bachelors, we're all, running around. It was, starting your careers. It was pursuing everything with all your passion. We pursued beauty. We were doing all the things boys were doing. He had the gift of the gab, I had the gift of the gab, and we could easily sort of hold you spellbound, combined together. We just enjoyed it.
First encounter was, I was an associate in the law firm of Shofunde, Osakwe, Ogunigbe, and Belgore then. So I was the most senior associate they hired. And we had streams of students who came in for law school attachment training and youth corpers who were on their national assignment. And so it was my responsibility, they were my floor. So they were my watch and it was my responsibility to supervise them. Wale came in as a youth corper.
I was a lawyer for maybe 1 year of my career, what we call the National Youth Service. So I practiced as a lawyer, and I was influenced by being a lawyer because my father trained as a lawyer. So I liked the arts. Happy I did. It gave me very, very good exposure on logical thinking, having a logical mindset, and being able to mentally project manage issues. I think the legal world is quite an interesting world because it's a world based on profound logic.
He wanted to dive very quickly into all of the nuances of litigation. The partners were much older than us, so it was like this was the person closest to mine. And I was in court every day, so we just used to go together.
You were effectively what was called a pupil then, and you would have a master who effectively was an older legal practitioner. And every time we went to see clients, and the clients would say, we're going to buy this company, we're going to do this transaction, we want to expand our business in this direction. I used to be the one taking notes. And then after a couple of months, I realized that I didn't want to be the one taking it. I wanted to be one on the other side of the table. That would be where I would be a lot more comfortable, talking and giving my vision to the support system of the legal world to help me structure my deals in terms of what I wanted to do. And thereafter, it became a choice of what to do. And it came back to the same point of globalization. I wrote 3 things down on a piece of paper that I wanted to achieve. One, I wanted to be inspired. I wanted to wake up every morning knowing that there was a new challenge, there was a new opportunity. It had to be a global world that I would be trading in. I wanted to interact with the international community on a day-to-day basis. And I wanted to make money. I wanted whatever I did to be lucrative. I wasn't going to do something which gave you a lot of psychological satisfaction but didn't give you monetary value.
We left that law firm. He persuaded me to resign and to start a partnership of our own in the name of his father's firm. I was managing partner. Our offices moved 4 doors down from 217A, where we were, I think then, Shofunde, to 213. We moved to 213, next door to the old law school. He came to me one morning and said, do I know GT Okoluku? I said, of course I know GT Okoluku. We were in Uniben together, but we were not in the same faculty, but we used to hang out occasionally and drink beer together. He said, how well do I know? I said, well, fairly well. What kind of person is he and all of that? I said, what's the problem with GT? He said, no, I met him at the club. Some club overnight, they went out to have fun, and there was this opportunity. GT had a network in the then National Oil and Chemical Company.
My other partner, who told me that he had the potential of a contract of affreightment to lift diesel fuel from the Port Harcourt refinery or the Warri refinery and take it to the fishing trawlers.
And so they needed a business. BRF, you have to incorporate a company for us. So we incorporated Ocean and Oil Services.
We had this client that had a tanker that he wanted to sell. He asked me to try and get it sold. Then while he comes to me and says that, hey, GTA's got a contract to put a tanker in service with Unipetrol, and he was looking for a tanker, and he knows that I've got this tanker that my client wants to sell, that he would like to charter the tanker. I said, okay, fine, but it's for sale. I said, well, I can't buy it, but you can charter it, because he would onboard charter it to Unipetrol. And I said, okay, I'll ask my client. So I asked my client said, nope, he doesn't know GTA, and besides, he really wants to sell the tanker. But however, if I said I wanted to be the one to take the tanker, he'll be able to look at that because he knows me. And I'm working in a law firm. So I tell Wale says, okay, you know what, why don't you give it to me and I will sort. I say, okay, fine, no problem. So he comes, he makes me an offer, which I accept. He makes GT an offer, which he accepts. And between the 3 of us, we have 1 tanker in common and 1 contract for affreightment of petroleum products in common. And that was how we started it.
So effectively, I was able to bridge a situation where somebody had an asset, didn't know what to do with it. Somebody had an opportunity and wasn't quite sure how to execute it. And I was able to bring a solution. including seeking the finance for it, which we did, at 10% per month. Then it was 120% a year, So that was my first experience, and we started out, and it was quite successful.
Months later, Mofe, who was a very damn good advocate with Rotimi Williams, we used to meet in court, and Mofe walks into me and said, BRF, Wale said you are supposed to be the third director and there is no room for a fourth director. I said, what director? He said, Ocean and Oil Services, that I want to be a director in that company. I said, so what are you doing about law practice? He said, I'm leaving FRA Williams. I said, what? Are you serious? He said, yes. I said, okay. What about you? I'm not interested in what you say. Are you for it? I can have it. Go ahead and have it. So, and I just wanted to be a lawyer.
It was the first transaction we did. We did several voyages, and the diesel fuel was taken to fishing trawlers where we made very little money. And then somebody said, take the oil to the oil fields, where they're shooting seismic for the deep offshore fields which Nigeria now has today. So the seismic was being shot for the likes of, for the Abo fields, for Engina, for Akpo, for Era today, was being shot in the 90s, the seismic. And so a lot of the fuel that was used and consumed by the seismic boats to shoot that seismic was provided by us.
And from then, I started seeing traffic in the law firm that wasn't envisaged. People coming to do all sorts of things. So one day I said, okay guys, this is a law firm, not an oil trading company. You have to move out. So I said, then find us an office. And so we started office hunting until we found one place, number 6 Amodu Tijani. So again, it was my lot to negotiate the lease and push them out.
So we went from a company of one vessel to probably close to 12 vessels and doing different sorts of opportunities in those years. And we grew rapidly and learned effectively the importance of delivering against your word. Our word was our bond in terms of delivering within it the right time, the right quality. And whenever there was an issue, we were always upfront with customers to say, there's an issue, but this is how we're going to solve it. And human beings are surprisingly able to accept when you let them know when there's an issue, as long as it's in advance or as long as it's honestly done. And so we discovered that and we worked very well with our clients.
This was now, I think, in the advent of the privatization era. And they were thinking then of buying, I think it was first Unipetrol.
For us, it was survival. Unipetrol and African Petroleum were controlled by NNPC. But government was selling its interests in those two companies, and Shell was also selling its interest in National Oil. So all of a sudden, the companies that had been the basis of our business for the past 10, 12 years is just about to change because new people are going to go and control those companies. So we had to go and bid for one of them because that was the only way to ensure that we could continue our business.
Unipetrol was a company we worked for as a service provider. So when the company came on the market and I told the then CEO that we're interested in buying it, he looked at me like I was a joker. Then the only challenge we had was we were so young and nobody in Nigeria gave young people a chance. Then we were in our early 30s, probably 31 or 32, something of that nature. And said, look, clearly you have no money, so you must have some financiers. So tell your financiers to come and see me. And I said, okay, thank you very much. And from then, I've always known and I've always been humble. So even if I say so myself, so I typically accept these things. And I went back that, when you get a rebuke or you get underestimated, then it means it's fuel to go and work harder.
Actually, Unipetrol was the last on the list because it was the smallest company in terms of market share. Number 1 on the list for us was National Oil. Well structured, well run. Number 2 was African Petroleum. Has scale, had a bit of an issue around its balance sheet, but still had massive potential. And we even rated it above Unipetrol, which was the smallest, but very well run, but it was small.
We were able to put in a bid, and the biggest task, first of all, was actually being pre-qualified, because the expectation is you're a small company, you know, what can you do? And this was 1990. Then also sought appointment with the government then and said, look, all we ask for is you to allow us to participate in this bid, because we're positive that if you let us participate in this bid, we'll win. And then when the financial bid came, you know, we won. And we won because we knew exactly how the company operated, what synergies could be done, what expansions could be done. And so we put in a keen price, and our bid was about, you know, it was 1.6 billion naira for 30% of the company, then $16 million. Because the company had a market cap of about $45 million in those days. $45 million in the country, I think our GDP was probably 100 billion. So it was a big company in those days.
Any good economist will surely accept that the answer for our faster growth and realistic growth in that sector is to deregulate it.
We thought that government had no choice but to deregulate in 1999 and fully deregulate, because it was obvious that without deregulation, we were just going to have a subsidy trap that was going to keep us in a state of perpetual, leakage in the system. And secondly, that the downstream itself was going to continue to be threatened. So I actually bet on deregulation happening by the year 2001, 2002, and I lost that bet. Yeah.
I raised $60 million from two banks, from Oceanic Bank and FCMB. Okay, and what was interesting was that FCMB represented us as the investment bank. Oceanic Bank was our commercial bank. Invariably, it was, you know, when you decide to do something audacious, everybody doubts you. But as soon as you show it can be done, everybody wants to back you. And then we got all kinds of calls. There was so much political pressure then that we could have bought this company. Why did you sell it to those young guys? We could have done it. We could have done it. Everybody realized they could have done it after it was done. And it took somebody to have the vision, the temerity, the financing, the patience to put a business plan together and show you could take over a national treasure as it was then.
I came into the company obviously having to interview through different stages, and the final stage was with him. And the question came up as to where I see myself in 5 years. And I said probably 5, and I gave myself probably 7, sitting in your chair. And he burst out laughing and turned to his EA who was in the room at the time and said, this guy's a joker. He thinks he's going to be sitting in my chair. I mean, that's the kind of person he is, right? It goes from formal to, comedy, He said, yeah, I'm done. It wasn't long. It was probably all of 15 minutes. But the 2 things I took away from that interview is that not knowing what you want is okay, I think, as long as you're striving every day for things that are of value to you, right? Okay, not being certain about what you want. But certainly being clear about what you don't want is more important. And that's the first thing I got from Matt. I know now, because I know him better now, the moment he gets on to other things, he's made up his mind and he's moved on.
So I was in Bermuda, and it's like, final interview is with Mr. Tinubu, JT, and he happens to be in New York. Would you be prepared to fly over from Bermuda to New York to meet with him? So I said, no problem, I will. So I went. And I met with him, and I said to him, talk to me about your vision for Oando. I wanted to understand what was driving him. And he began to share his vision about building a world-class indigenous oil and gas company, but world-class, and investing in people. And it was actually an African vision at the time, and now it's a global vision.
But I'll tell you a more interesting moment where I had my first, I'll say, interaction from a disagreement standpoint. I was leading a project. It was basically an optimization of our energy services business. And I had gone out to Port Harcourt. I was on the rig for a few weeks, a month, and I'd come back, to do a presentation as to, what the problems were. And I, going at it a little bit like a, smart Alex, so to speak. And at some point he said to me, "Oga, you seem to know all the problems, eh? Well, go and solve them now. Let's see if you can solve them." And for him, that was a challenge. Go fix the problems if you know what they are. He gave me all the support I needed. I went out there, we were able to turn the business around, get it back to be significantly more profitable and optimized in comparison to what it was prior.
I remember 6 weeks into the role, I had this argument with my boss, with Mr. Tinubu, over something that I felt should be done in a particular way. And I was arguing with him on the phone for what must have been about 5 minutes. And at some stage, he got exasperated. I said to him, "This is really inappropriate language and behavior, and I don't expect it of you." And he dropped the phone out of frustration. And then about 30 seconds later, he calls me and he says, "I'm really sorry I spoke to you like that, but you need to listen to me. Go and check this." And of course, I went away and I checked. And he was right. So I had to go back and apologize. But I wondered what kept me in the company after that argument. Was it the audacity with which I dared to challenge the group chief executive and tell him I knew better than him? Was it that audacity that he liked about my approach? I don't know, but he was prepared to give me another chance. He's a very open person. He's very hopeful. He's very optimistic.
Very audacious, very kind, very clever.
Wale is a quintessential entrepreneur, very courageous, is very bold, extremely hardworking.
One thing that you can say that Wale has had is courage, immense courage, vision. He sees the future and he goes after it. Determination, he's unrelenting and he doesn't give up.
Right from the start, Wale was always interested. I've always known him in the energy sector as a vibrant, energetic, and very, very ambitious.
Many different parts all rolled into one human being. Somebody who acts on very strong convictions in business and in life.
Probably has more than 9 lives because I think they faced many challenges, but at the end of the day, each challenge has made them stronger and also made him and his team that bit wiser.
I always wanted to be a global citizen. I never wanted to be restricted to one country in my work because I have an incredibly curious mind. I watch a lot of news, I read a lot of periodicals, read a lot of newspapers, and I'm fascinated by the rest of the world and the way the world works and the levels of development and the speed of development and the reason for change in different economies or countries and the reason for decline in other environments.
I realized that there were 1 or 2 instances where people were concerned about him, that he was doing too much. Clearly he wasn't sleeping at night.
I woke up this morning, Wale called me between maybe around 1:40 a.m. this morning. And that's Wale too. So I laughed when I was responding to that. I said, "Face of corporate Nigeria, you don't sleep." His most impressive attribute as a business leader is resilience. So there's no greater description of who and what Wale Tinubu has been in corporate Nigeria. It didn't start today, it started long ago.